Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think that we have a lot of people on already who are joining us. God willing, this will be a very, very informative, worthwhile, and important hour together, or however long we take. We'll try. Of course, we'll start with a joke, right? That's how we have to always start. Get the energy going. So, an elderly man in Phoenix calls his son in New York and says, "I hate to ruin your day, but I have to tell you the terrible news that your mother and I are getting divorced. 45 years of misery, 45 years of her, in my ear all the time. Enough is enough. I just making nukchain, and I'm done. We're getting divorced." Son screams, "What are you talking about? Father, are you crazy? You can't get divorced." And he says, it's not up for discussion. It's already a final decision. We're getting done. You can call your sister in Chicago. Tell her I don't want to speak to her and hear her argue with me. And the father hangs up the phone. Frantically, he calls his sister in Chicago and says, "You never believe it. Father just called me. They're getting divorced. What are we going to do about it?" She says, "Don't do anything. I'm going to fly there right now." She picks up the phone. She calls her father, starts screaming at her father, says, "Don't you dare get divorced until I get down to Phoenix and I get a chance to talk to you. I'm calling my brother. We'll both be on planes tomorrow morning. Don't do anything." The old man hangs up the phone. He turns his wife with a big smile and says, "Okay, we got both of our kids coming for the Pesach Seder, and they're paying for their own tickets." Okay.
That was good.
It's good that you have your voice on so we can hear the laughing. It's good for me. So the Seder is the highlight of the Jewish year, and especially because of the family feeling that we have sitting around the table where everyone sits together like one, and we have the time together to bond. And this year, sadly, as you all already know, unfortunately, all of us will not be with our entire family. And most of us, or many of us, will be without any of the family that we normally sit with every year together at our Seder. Perhaps some of you watching will be celebrating this Pesach Seder all alone, which is a horrible, it's sad, but it is what it is. And you might want to be discouraged and say, "I give up and I can't do it." Very briefly tell you a story I just read today. In the Vanigin concentration camp, which is a small concentration camp, 1943, toward the middle of the war, there was a inmate in the concentration camp. His name was Moshe Pearl, and he was an artist actually. One day, one of the SS officers comes into him and says, "I need you to make for me dummy target boards to use for our soldiers to practice their target shooting." And at that moment, Moshe Pearl had an idea. He says to the officers, "No problem, but I'm going to need flour to stick on the images onto the wood. I need flour." "How much flour do you need?" He says, 5 kilograms. "No problem." He gets the 5 kilograms. He gets the 5 kilograms. He gets some of his friends together, and they were able, in secret, in the workroom, to bake some matzah. And that year, in 1943, in the Vanigin concentration camp, 20 Jews gathered together in this workroom, and they made matzah. They made wine out of sugar and water. And maror, of course, they had quite plenty without anybody else's help. And they celebrated a Pesach Seder. They said the Manashtana. They read the Haggadah from memory, etc. So Jews have always overcome, and Jews have celebrated Pesach under more difficult circumstances, under more stressful, dire situations. And so, yes, we feel, not the way we would like to feel, but when you look at the big picture and perspective, the challenges that we face compared to what some of our ancestors have to face in order for them to celebrate Pesach, we really have it easy and we shouldn't be complaining, etc. Okay. However, you may be thinking that, what's the point? So I'll eat some matzah, but my grandkids won't be with me this year, or my grandparents won't be with me this year. I'll skip, normally my father would come and he would read all the stuff, read. And I'm going to skip it. I'm not in the mood of doing it all this year. Just cancel. So you have to recognize, I already said this several times, but it's so important, especially this year, to remember that this year will probably be the first time that most of us will celebrate Pesach the way they did it in Egypt the very first time. The Jews that were in Egypt, the night before the liberation from slavery, that night they were alone as the Pesach offering was slaughtered, and they ate the Paschal lamb together with the matzah and the maror, with the blood on their doorposts before the Exodus. God says, it's black and white in the verse, Ish me Pesach Beisel, no man shall leave his home until the morning. The original Pesach Seder was conducted in quarantine. The Jews sat alone in their homes. There was no rabbi. There was no communal gathering. Everyone sat together as one. And therefore, when we celebrate this year as well, together as one, we are obviously reenacting the way it was in the first Pesach Seder. This is very, very important. Going back to the original, that's how I would recommend that you view this year's Pesach Seder experience. Another thing I want to mention is if you're planning on doing Seder over Zoom or etc., you should do that beforehand. But this year, because you don't have the family you normally have, the older people, the younger people, etc., you might normally have, so therefore, do all the memories beforehand, and then during the actual Seder, you're focused on having the Seder the way it should be as well. Okay, questions on the comments. Firmbaum is trying to join. Subish needs a password to get in. Password is Chabad, Chabad. Hope that's what the issue is. If not, let me know. Okay, that sounds privately. Password to get in is Chabad, and let me just make sure there's no one waiting to get into the waiting room. Participant? No. Okay. Fine. You got it. If some other question, feel free. Please, I'm going to keep my eye on the group chat, so feel free to post any questions or unmute yourself to ask a question. Otherwise, if you keep yourself muted, it would be better so that it's not a lot of background noise. Okay. Today we're going to discuss the why, the what, the where, the when, and the how of the Pesach Seder. Okay? Let's start number one with the why. Why do we make a Pesach Seder? I'm going to not spend too long, but it's important to appreciate meaning in the context of what we're about to do tonight. Beautiful analogy. Today we're all talking about symptoms, right? If you have the symptoms, I've gotten several phone calls from people who think that they have the coronavirus. The first question is, what are your symptoms? What are you feeling? Do you have fever? Do you have a cough? Scared because the media is, in your head all day. So we all talking about symptoms, yet we all know that symptoms are not the cause of the virus. Meaning it's very possible that someone can have zero symptoms, they can be asymptomatic, and still have the virus. The symptoms, the point of the symptoms is only that it's a way of us knowing what is going on inside your body that we can't see with the naked eye. We can't see the virus or the bacteria that's inside your body, but through the symptoms that expresses and reveals what's going on inside. And this is also true in a spiritual positive sense. Kabbalah tells us that everything that happens in the physical world is only a symptom of some sort of spiritual energy that is being released and unleashed in higher spiritual realms. And therefore, on a special day, on a holy day, what is happening below is actually a reflection of the same spirituality and the same holiness that existed above. So Wednesday night, when we sit down to our Seder table, we are not just remembering something that happened 3,332 years ago. When we sit down at our Seder table, we are actually tonight tapping into an energy that will exist in the world, a divine energy of exodus, of liberation, an energy of redemption that allows us to break free from our own barriers and our own limitations and our own problems. Actually, an amazing, amazing thing. So we can tap into this. Everything that we're going to do tonight, the wine, the matzah, the mar, everything we're going to talk about tonight, these are symptoms that express a deeper, higher spiritual reality that is too great to be revealed for the naked physical eye, cannot see these greater spiritual truths, but through the matzah, through the maror, through the charosas, etc., we are able to reveal the symptoms of a truer spiritual truth. And when we do these things, we are facilitating the same kind of spiritual energy that allowed the Jews to experience redemption and freedom from slavery. We can experience it as well tonight. And so, we talk about this all the time, but it's so important to have the understanding that aside for the actions of the Seder, it's a night of redemption, it's a night of freedom. Whatever spiritual, whatever emotional blockage or spiritual slavery you feel that you're in, whatever it is, and I've thought of for myself, what is it that I feel that I need to escape this year? And when you have that in mind, your Pesach experience actually gives you divine energy to be able to break free from spiritual limitation and emotional bondage that we all have to some extent. That's the power and energy of the why. Why do we do a Seder? Because through the act of the Seder, it gives us the ability to reveal the symptoms and the actions that enable us to tap into the greater divine energy that will exist in the world regardless, but that we wouldn't be connecting to if not for the fact that we were having the Seder. That's the why. Clear? Again, any questions, feel free to ask, etc. Now we come to the what of the Pesach Seder. The what. Now, does anyone know what the word Seder means? Feel free to type. The word Seder, anyone knows what the word Seder means in the chat? Anyone? Seder means, I didn't say anyone at the end, order. There you go, very good. The word Seder means order. Order, that's correct. Which means that the Seder is not like a birthday party. A birthday party, you come to a birthday party, where you have some cake, you have more cake, you have less cake, it's still 3 pieces of cake, you don't tell anyone, or you're going to diet and you eat no cake. It's all good. All good, because it's just a party. But if it's something which is critically important, let's say we're talking about a sports game, where 2 inches of, over the goal line is a touchdown, or it's not a touchdown, or a bride on her wedding night, where every single detail of every single flower has to be exactly correct, then in order to tap into the energy of the Pesach night, in order to connect to the divine liberation that exists, so we just need to connect to it, then you got to follow the order. You got to follow the plan. Like taking medicine, there's a certain regimen that you got to follow, and the same is true on the Pesach even. The example that I always give for this, beautiful example, is of a person who sends an email. I'll skip all the drama. But if you want to send an email to somebody, every single letter of the email address needs to be correct. If even one letter of the email address is not correct, then the entire email gets lost in outer space, and no one has it, it's gone, etc. And the exact same true is with all the nuances, all the details of the Seder night. In order to spiritually connect and to ingest the holiness of the matzah, etc., you need to follow at least the basic structure of what needs to be done. It's not just technical details. These are the symptoms of a greater spiritual truth that our naked physical eye cannot see. But when we follow the instruction that God gives in the Torah, we are able to spiritually be connected and to reveal through these physical objects a very, very powerful, liberating, holy energy that does not exist on any other day of the entire year, the way it exists at the Pesach Seder. Okay. And with that, I'll just there's a Hasidic thought experiment, which is that if you have 2 Jews, I mean, it's a whole long story, but again, I'm skipping just the message of it, the point of it, because I'm going to try and condense everything into this one night. That you have 2 Jews. And there's a true story. One sitting in a big famous rabbi, and he's sitting in the prison in Siberia for the crime of teaching Torah. And he's waiting for the matzah that his family sent him to arrive and did not arrive. And he spends all night on Pesach meditating and thinking about the spiritual holiness of the matzah. But he doesn't eat the matzah, he is not fulfilled the mitzvah. Someone else, by mistake, they were invited, they came, they want the food, they ate matzah. They have no idea what they're doing, they've done the mitzvah. It's like medicine. Medicine, you can be a doctor, and you can know everything about the medicine, but unless you actually swallow it, thinking about it and knowing it and wishing you did it has no value. But if you eat it, even if you have no understanding of the spirit of the medicine, the power of the medicine, it's effectively very powerful. The same thing is true with this. All the details we're going to talk about tonight, especially I'm going to make sure to give you clarity on what is important and what's less important, etc. I want to also suggest that especially this year where the social element of the Seder is less pronounced and there's less people at your table that you need to engage and interact with and keep them interested, etc., it allows you more freedom to truly, and this is how I'm feeling for myself, to truly get into the Seder, do it right, make it a Seder like you've never experienced before, where you're truly connected to God. And even if you make a mistake, don't feel bad. It says, Rachamana liba boy, God wants the heart, God wants your connection. And when God sees that you're totally focused on doing the best you can, to connect to Him with all your heart and doing the best you can, that's the best. Okay. Now we get to what do we need to make the Seder.
You want something?
So there's three things. There are three things that you need. You should have gotten the Seder checklist, by the way. I sent this out. Everyone that registered for tonight's class received an email today with a Seder checklist. If you have it in front of you, that's great. There are three things that you will need in order to make this work. Number one is matzah, shmura matzah. So if you do not have, number one is matzah. Number two is wine. Of course, any wine works. And if you don't want to drink wine, grape juice is just as good. It does not have to be alcoholic. Grape juice is just as kosher as using wine, but definitely wine or grape juice. And number three, you're going to need a Seder plate. This is a Chabad Seder plate, the one I use in my house. And for illustrative purposes, and the memory of a dear, dear friend, Carol Cohen, using this one as well, which has the words in it. Okay, let's get into them in more detail. Number one, matzah. So if you come to Chabad, I will be absolutely glad to give you as a gift one of these small gift boxes. If you open it up, inside are three matzahs, okay? Three matzahs just like this. This matzah is three components to this matzah. Number one, it's shmura matzah. The word shmura means that it's guarded. It's been watched and protected to make sure that it does not come into any contact with the water. From the moment that this wheat was harvested in the field, till the moment that the wheat and the water were mixed in the bakery, this matzah was guarded to make sure that the flour and water never came into any kind of contact. That's number one. Number two, it's handmade. This is a very important component of the matzah, is that it's handmade shmura matzah. The reason why handmade is so important is because in order to do a mitzvah with something, that object needs to be made for the sake of the mitzvah. So, for example, when the scribe is writing a Torah scroll, before he writes the Torah scroll, he says that I am writing the scroll for the sake of the mitzvah. In the matzah bakery, every 18 minutes before they make the matzah, all the people that are rolling the matzah, making the matzah, they say, we are making this matzah for the sake of the mitzvah of being eaten at the Seder table. So it has to have that meditation, that kavanah is made for the sake of the mitzvah. Number three is that it's round and circular, which is also a lot of symbolism in the idea of being round. But the point is, in order to do the mitzvah properly, especially in order to spiritually connect to the spiritual energy and the spiritual properties of matzah, it has to be handmade, it has to be guarded, and this is what the Kabbalah calls the bread of faith. Kabbalah calls it the bread of healing. Two different energies, primarily the bread of faith on the first night of Pesach, the bread of healing on the second night of Pesach, handmade matzah. If you do not have handmade matzah, you can buy it at any Judaica store, any kosher store, or feel free, I'll be in Chabad all day tomorrow. Please come, I'll give you a box as a gift. Each box contains three matzahs. That's number one. Number two is the wine. You're going to need to have 4 cups of wine at your Seder table. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be any wine or grape juice works. Normally, every Shabbat, every holiday, we inaugurate the holiday by making Kiddush. That's how we welcome in the day of Shabbos. We stand by the table, we pour a glass of wine or grape juice, we make Kiddush. Pesach is unique that we drink not one, but 4 different cups of wine at 4 different intervals during the Seder night. And the reason for that is because in the verses where God tells the Jewish people, when Moses is by the burning bush, he tells the Jewish people 4 different expressions of redemption, 4 different languages of redemption. In order to remember all 4 expressions of redemption, we too have 4 different cups of wine during the Seder. These 4 cups are drunk at 4 different points, and we'll go through each one at the time. It is important to try and drink all 4 cups. Again, if it's therefore do not get a wine that's too high in alcohol or very sugary, might be hard. A low sugary wine with low sulfite would be much easier to digest. Again, if it's too much, grape juice is just as good as wine. Okay. Just a short thought before I go further. The difference between matzah and wine, just a short thought, is that matzah, anyone want to tell me the difference? Matzah is tasteless. It's just flour and water and absolutely nothing else. And the the wine is obviously sweet and flavorful and a very sophisticated flavor. The more expensive the bottle, the more sophisticated the flavor. In serving God, there's 2 different elements and energies to serving God. There is serving God like matzah, where you don't understand what in the world you're doing. You just do it dry, rote actions for no other reason than because you're trying to do what God told you to do. But it's like matzah. It's tasteless to you. It's meaningless to you. And then they're serving God like a good glass of wine. I would have been smart. I would have bought a corkscrew with me. I'm actually in the mood of saying I need a drink. But you drink a glass of wine. There's a lot of flavor, a lot of depth, and a lot of different flavors involved. So too, when you serve God with flavor, it means you understand, you appreciate the meaning of what you're doing. Our Pesach Seder must have both. We must serve God with the wine. We must understand and appreciate what it is that we're doing. And we also need to accept and whatever God tells us, we're glad to do. The third thing that you will need at your Seder plate, Seder table, is the Seder plate. Okay? There's going to be 6 different objects on the Seder plate. We will get into them in a second. It's called in Hebrew the Ka'ara. There's different ways of doing it. The Chabad way is not in a circle. The light is glowing off of this. The Chabad way is not to do it in a circle. Chabad way is to do it in a 3 segels, based on the teachings of the Arizal. I gave a class already on this. If you go back onto our YouTube channel, on my Facebook page, you'll see classes on the spiritual energy. There's different spheres of the Seder plate. We're not going to discuss it tonight, but this is the Chabad way of doing it. Obviously, I will teach you the Chabad way, but feel free to do it as you want. Okay. The first thing we do when making the Seder plate is the matzah. So we have here a beautiful Seder plate that actually has different pockets for the 3 different matzahs. You're going to need all 3. So you're going to put 1. They should all be whole, ideally. 1 in the bottom. If you don't have a plate like this, it's fine. You just put like a napkin in between each one, and that's just as good. We're going to put 1. We're going to put in 3 matzos into 3 containers. I'm going to put the broken one. It's already broken. One became broken. Put this one in the middle because we're going to break it anyway. Put this one in the middle. And then we're going to put this matzah on the top. So we now have in here, sorry. So we now have 3 matzahs piled one on top of the other. Top of the 3 matzahs goes your Seder plate. Okay? So first thing to go into your, let me move it back a little bit. First thing that goes into your Seder plate is, on the top 1 second, you have your checklist over here. More. If you're using your checklist, you'll see, so we have the Seder plate, we have the matzah on the bottom, we'll get to the wine in a second, we'll use that soon. We put a hard-boiled egg. So, lost my notes here. We have over here hard-boiled egg. Looks legit, looks real. We're going to put the hard-boiled egg right here on the top left corner of the Seder plate. And on the top right side, we're going to put another object, which is the zroya, the shank bone. Now, it could be a shank bone. The Chabad custom is to use the neck of a chicken. It could, if you don't have a chicken neck, it could be any bone. It could be a chicken leg. It could be any bone. Maybe a little bit creative. And who knows what this is? I don't have any zroya yet. My wife, we just kosher our kitchen yesterday. The oven didn't go in till today. But this is from today's supper. Just realized I shouldn't be putting it into the Seder plate. It's a hot dog. So we're going to put it on here. This is going to be our This is going to be our shank bone, like that. Next, let me explain these two things now. So we have here the egg and the piece of chicken bone or shank bone. What do these represent? Both of these top two objects are zecher lemikdash. They are a remembrance and a memory of the temple. They are a remembrance of the temple. So this dish, the egg, reminds us of what's called the Korban Chagig, the holiday offering. Every single holiday, when the Jews would come and be elevated to come to the temple for the holiday, they would bring a special holiday offering that is represented by the egg. Why specifically an egg? Because an egg is a round food that is eaten by mourners. It's a custom that when you come home from a funeral, the mourners, when they come home from a funeral, they eat hard-boiled eggs because eggs are round, right? We all know that egg is round, and the reason for that is to symbolize that the world goes round and round, the circle of life, which goes round and round. And so too, even though tonight we are celebrating and the temple is destroyed, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash in which to bring the holiday offering. Nevertheless, the world is around, and we know that very, very soon Mashiach will come. On the top right is the Zroa. I'm going to put this like this. On the top right, we have the Zroa, and the Zroa represents the Korban Pesach. Zroa means an arm, but it's the Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering. It was a unique holiday offering that was brought specifically for the holiday of. Okay. So that is our top two. Now, in the middle and on the bottom is going to go, in the middle and on the bottom is going to be two marors. What is maror? So in the Mishnah tells us that you have to eat maror, and actually eating the maror is of biblical origin. Eating the maror is a mitzvah in the Torah to remember the suffering and the slavery of the Jewish people in Egypt. Okay? So, by the way, the Seder was upside down because it's facing the camera, but when it'll be looking at me, it'll be the exact opposite, just so you realize this is the way it'll be facing me. Okay? Maybe we should even do it, whatever. This is facing you. This is your Seder plate, not mine. This is your Seder plate, the way it would look facing you. So the rabbis instituted when it says maror, they gave 5 different herbs that are considered kosher for maror. However, the Mishnah is written in Aramaic, and we are not sure what all of those 5, we are not sure what all those 5 herbs are. The 2 that we know for sure are lettuce. We got some lettuce over here. I have a few pieces of lettuce. Or bitter herb, horseradish, the roots of a horseradish. Now, what we do is we do both. And there's 2 reasons. First of all, you want to eat a kazayis. A kazayis is a amount of an olive. It's several grams. And just to eat this plain is very, very bitter and very difficult, and you'll probably be choking and gagging. So what we do is we put on our Seder plate, break this in half so it'll fit in. We put the maror, like this, and then we pour some of this on top like that. Okay? We're going to do 2 of those. One in the middle. I'm going to do another one all the way in the bottom. I'm going to break it in half, like this, make it easier to hold it. And then, that'll be the best. You see how I'm doing it? You can see some horseradish, oopsies, inside the lettuce, just like that. And then you prop it up on your Seder plate. As you can see, that's how it looks. Okay? Now, you may ask a question. Let's drop closer. Bone represents, we said the bone represents the Paschal offering, the Korban Pesach brought in the temple. So, you may ask a question that I understand that this bitter. I understand that horseradish is maror. It's bitter. It's very, very difficult to eat. It's very, very spicy. If you eat too much, you'll be choking. I understand. But lettuce is not an especially bitter, difficult food to eat. In fact, if you ever got a Caesar salad or a Greek salad, the lettuce is not bitter at all. So why do we eat this as mar? The answer is because when this is when lettuce is left on the ground too long, if it's not harvested right away when it's ripe, it actually becomes very, very bitter and almost impossible to eat. This is exactly the same message of the Jewish people in Egypt. When we came down to Egypt, we came down as royalty. Came down and we were royalty from the family of Joseph. We were considered welcome people in Egypt. However, we stayed in Egypt too long, and instead of remaining as royalty, we became slaves. Our life became better. So we have a combination of that which is naturally very bitter, which is the horseradish. We have the lettuce, which, first of all, the stalk, the white part is bitter. That's a simple explanation. But also we have the lettuce, and if left for too long, the lettuce will also become bitter and become difficult to eat. Okay, I hope that that's clear. So we have so far our egg, which is the holiday offering. Our shank bone is the Pesach offering. Our maror and our second maror called the chazeret. Well, chazeret, we're going to get to it later on in the Seder as a custom. We'll get to it when we get to it. Next, on the Seder plate, in this corner right here under the egg, goes the karpas. The karpas is a vegetable that will be dipped into salt water. Now, any vegetable is okay. Different people have a different custom, what they use. The Chabad custom, you can use celery, you can use parsnip, cabbage, any vegetable to make a blessing adam. The Chabad custom is to either use a potato or a raw onion. And we want it to be bitter. We're going to dip this raw onion into salt water. Since we're going to dip the onion into salt water, the salt water is representative of the tears of the Jewish people in slavery. Since the slavery was very difficult, we want a bitter vegetable. So the Chabad custom is to use a raw onion. But again, if that's too bitter, potato works. Our kids use potatoes, and I would say we have both potatoes and onions. You can use. I know many people have the custom to use celery. It's all good as long as it's a vegetable. And on this side of the Seder plate goes the charoses. Here's some charoses. You can see it's just spilled a little bit, but right over there, right inside, I'm gonna make a mess. On the charoses, there's many, many different recipes how to make charoses, many different family customs, many different community customs. The main thing is it can be apples, pears, dates, pomegranates, walnuts, almonds, cinnamon, ginger. We use apples and pears, but it has to have wine in it. The only ingredient that it must have, if it has apples, is good. If not, it's also good. If it has ginger, but it has to have wine. Why? Because the red wine represents the blood of the Jewish people. And the whole idea of the charoses, the idea of the charoses is the mud the Jewish people made. The mud the Jewish people made at their Seder, that they made to build the pyramids. And in the mud was mixed the blood of the Jews. Okay? So here is our Seder plate. The egg on the right top corner, the shank bone on the top left corner, the maror in the middle, the vegetable for karpas, the charoses, and the second thing in maror called chazeret, which will be later on after by the Korah. Okay? This is your Seder plate. Once you have this, you're almost ready to go. Now, so far everything good? If you have any questions, again, please feel free to write a comment or to write a comment. You can unmute yourself for a question. Okay. Now, what time should we have the Seder? You may be thinking, whatever time you want. The earlier the better. You don't do it too late when the kids fall asleep. So I have to tell you a story. There was a rich man who was very, very hospitable. And he had a custom that the way he would give charity is by inviting poor people to his home. Every single day he had a big meal. Whoever was poor could come to his home, be invited. And when they would come to his home, they could take anything that they wanted from the Seder table, and they could take it home as a gift. The idea was that by doing this, they would have something of value that they could take home with them. And this thing of value would give them some money that they needed to, they would take a cup, a silver fork, a goblet, a serving dish, whatever they wanted, they could take, and that would help them out. One day, a poor man from a neighboring village receives an invitation to the wealthy man's home. So he comes to the meal and he's watching in amazement how everything that the rich man wants, takes a little bell out of his pocket, small little bell, a cheap bell. He shakes the bell, and immediately a servant comes running out of the kitchen. Says, yes, says, I want more wine. He gets some wine, he gets some fish, he gets some cake. Whatever he wants, whatever any of the guests request, the rich man just shakes his bell, poof, and the waiter brings it. So at the end of the meal, the rich man turns to this poor man and says, tell me, what would you like to take as your souvenir from our meal? So he says to the rich man, I want the bell that you have. The man says, the bell's very inexpensive. Take something more valuable. Take a silver cup. Take something of value. He says, don't trick me. I want your bell. Okay. Guy thinks he's a little mashuga. You want my bell? What is the bell going to help you if you don't, okay. He gives him the bell. This poor man wasn't very smart. He was thinking that now that he has the bell, he could just ring the bell whenever he wants, and whoever waiters will come, bring him any delicacy that he wants. He comes back home to his village, comes home and says, Goldie, guess what? We're in luck. We are now going to become wealthy people in town. We're going to become respected people in town. Invite everyone in town for a meal. We're going to feed them all. Easy. How are we going to feed everyone in town? Trust me, I have a secret bell. It's a magic bell. You shake the bell, and whatever you want appears. Okay? She, I guess, isn't too smart either. So she listens to him. And which Jewish woman would listen to their husbands anyway? But whatever. In the story, that's what happened. So she goes and she invites all the people in town. They fill up the whole entire house. Everyone's wondering, where is this poor man going to get food to feed so many guests? Finally, everyone is sitting at the table. He's very proud of himself. Look at his home is full of people. He stands up on a chair. He pulls out the bell very ceremoniously. When he gives a shuckle, he shakes the bell. Garnished. Nothing's happening. It's harder. People start to snicker. People start to laugh. And they're laughing at him, making fun of him. He's so embarrassed. He can't handle it. And so he says, until the whole place is laughing at him, he's so embarrassed, he runs out of his own house in front of all of his guests. He starts running back to the other town where the rich man gave him the bell. He goes running, and by the time he gets to the town, it's already middle of the night. He's banging on the door. Finally, the rich man opens the door and says, yes. He says, you tricked me. You lied to me. You gave me the wrong bell. And the rich man says, I didn't give you the wrong bell. I gave you the right bell. He says, how come it didn't work? He says, fool. The bell only works if you are the master of the home and you have people working for you, then the bell works. The bell by itself is useless. Why am I sharing this story? As I explained earlier, that at the Seder we are tapping into a special spiritual energy that exists on the night of our freedom and liberation from Egypt. The matzah, the wine, the maror, the haggadah, all of that are ways of eliciting and evoking these spiritual energies. But the energies only present, shaking the bell, only works at a time when that divine energy exists in the universe. So if you're going to try and do a Pesach Seder during the day of Wednesday, before the night has fallen, the sun has set, and it's night outside, it is not yet the night of Pesach. The spiritual energy of liberation and exodus is not yet in the universe. So you're doing the symptoms, you're doing the actions, you're shaking the bell, but you're not connecting to spiritual energy because the energy does not yet exist in the world. And so when does the 15th of Nisan, when does the day and the energy of Passover begin in Jewish tradition. Every calendar date, whether it's Shabbat, whether it's Yom Kippur, whether it's Pesach, begins at night before the day. So only after it's dark outside and it's night outside does the divine holiness and energy of Pesach exist, that your wine and your maror and your matzah is connecting you to something holier and out of the realm of what we can ever connect to on a regular day. So therefore, it is very important that if you're going to eat matzah and drink wine, etc., that you do it after it gets dark outside. And this year it's easier than usual because you're not having guests coming, you're having people, older people, younger people. If it's very hard, take a nap during the day so you can stay up late at night. If you want, you can eat before. You can have your dinner before you eat the matzah and the maror. That's fine. When we do the community seder and shul, we have food on the table from the very beginning already, and you can have food and eat before. And maybe just do a fish course first, then do your seder, and then do the meat course, or then do dessert even if you want. Also, one more very important point is that the whole story of Pesach is our liberation from slavery to freedom, from darkness to light. And therefore, the Pesach Seder has to begin in darkness. It has to begin when it's dark outside. And only in darkness and in night and in exile and bondage do we then move forward to light and to freedom, etc. So in Coral Springs, Florida, nightfall Wednesday night begins at 8:05. 8:05 is when is considered night by Jewish law. So again, if you have family, whatever, before, if you're eating before, that's fine. But the matzah, the wine, the story of Haggadah, that should all be done after 8:05 p.m. because that is when there is true spiritual holiness in the air. Now let's get to the how of the Seder. We've done the why, we've done the what, we've done the when, we've done the where, the home, and now the last step is the hardest step, the how. How do we actually conduct the Seder? By the way, I want to interrupt myself for a second. Feel free to ask questions if you don't understand anything I said. You can also message me in the chat privately if you don't want to ask publicly. Someone asked me a question privately. Can we use grape juice instead of wine for the charoset? And the answer is yes. If you can't have, you can put a little bit in, but if you can't have alcohol, if you don't want to use wine, absolutely, you can put in grape juice instead of wine because the same symbolism of the blood of the Jewish people. And someone else messaged me that you can have dessert. Absolutely. If you want to have dessert first and then have the meal during the Seder, or have a fish course first, whatever works for you, that's fine. As long as you're doing the drinking and the eating of the matzah and the maror after 8:05 p.m. in Coral Springs. Just to remind you, candle lighting Wednesday night is 1 second, I'll tell you right now. Candle lighting is at 7:24 on Wednesday. It's candle lighting 7:24. Today's nightfall is 8:05. Okay, so what do? You should have your checklist on the thing. You also should have a printed, if you didn't print it, you could print it. If you don't have this, I will send it out to everyone and it's available. I don't know how to share it in Zoom. I tried. This is a printout of the main text of the Haggadah that you need. So the first thing you need to do for your Seder is to light the candles. As I mentioned, 7:24 is the time for candle lighting. So you have to light candles. You can light it afterwards, not Shabbat. Unlike on Shabbat where you must light candles before it gets dark, because we don't light fire on Shabbat. On a holiday, you can light the candles afterwards. So if you want to light the candles at 8 o'clock when you're beginning your Seder, that's perfectly okay, no problem. 8 o'clock, you can go, you can light your candles. Let me just open this up so we'll have it. You can open up your candle, you can light your candles, and you can right away sit around the table and do a kiddush, no problem. Okay. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to make kiddush. You're going to make kiddush. Take your wine, you're going to fill up your glass of wine. The cup should be totally full, and if you want to do the real style, let it overflow. The reason why it overflows is because whenever we pour a cup of blessing, we want the blessings to overflow, and we all can use extra blessings nowadays. We can all use blessings that will be overflowing. So let the cup be full to the very, very top. Better a smaller cup than a big cup, because ideally you should drink the entire cup of wine. The minimum is to have a full mouthful, but really the real requirement is to drink a reviz, which is 3 ounces, 3.2 ounces. So better to have a smaller cup that you can drink the whole cup than a larger cup where you're only sipping it and not really drinking the whole cup of wine. Again, you can use grape juice if you need to, but try and use a small cup, anything over 3 ounces, and drink the entire. The text of the Kiddush, I'm just going to share my screen for a second so you'll see it. The text for the Kiddush is right over here. Here's the blessing. This is the printout that we sent out. This is the blessing for the candles, including Shachayanu. Here's a Kiddush. Everyone should make their own Kiddush. Men and women and children. The first blessing is the Hagafen. The second blessing is the blessing for the holiday. And the third is the Shachayanu, V'kimanu, V'hegiyanu, Lazman Hazeh. When you finish the blessing on the wine, you sit down and you drink the wine reclining. Why do we drink reclining? Anyone know? Someone asked me if you can dilute the water with, dilute the water. Can you dilute the wine with water? Yes, the answer is yes. Jewish law talks about it. The truth is that today's wines are diluted. So really, you shouldn't dilute it that much. You can put in ice. I will tell you, I'll recommend a few wines that are very good. There's a wine called Eminent Dry. I have it here in the home. I don't have it in front of me. There's a wine called Eminent Dry. It has no sugar added and there's no sulfite. It's very, very good. It's a very low alcohol content, and there's no sugar and no sulfite. It will not give you any kind of headache or buzz. That's highly recommended. So, someone wrote, we recline to show that we are free. We are free from the Egyptians. We are masters. That is absolutely correct. Thank you, those that are posting. You see the picture of the Romans, whatever, they're sitting on their thing, and the servants are giving them grapes. We recline to show that we are free men, that we are kings, that we are royalty, that we are celebrating in peace. Make sure when you recline, you're reclining to the left side. You don't want to recline on the side of your windpipe because you might, God forbid, choke. So you recline on the left side. You lean. If you don't have a chair with armrest, take your chair sideways so you're leaning on the table, and you drink like that, leaning on the table. The next step is the karpas, the vegetable. Remember this onion, it could be the potato. We dip it into the salt water. There is a custom to wash your hands before. If it's going to be too much, don't wash now. It's more important to wash before the hamotzi later on. When you make the blessing on the vegetable, the blessing is very simple. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam, borei pri ha'adama. That's the blessing. Have in mind that this is also the blessing for the maror, right? So you're eating the onion, but you're also later going to be eating maror, the lettuce, and the horseradish, which is also a vegetable, will be the same blessing for both. Why do we dip the vegetable into the water? I mean, the water is just tears. But why do we dip it into the water? The answer is so that you should have a question what to ask about. The point is we need to ask questions to keep the children engaged, to keep them involved, to keep them interactive. But there's a very, very important message over here. And that is that, first of all, you have to be creative in education. You have to do things that will get your children interested. But besides for that, the key to Jewish learning is to be inquisitive, to be curious, to always desire to want to learn more. Children need to be taught to ask questions. Adults need to be taught to ask questions. There is no reason, we discussed this in the class last week, there is no real reason why we dip a vegetable into salt water. The reason why we do it is to ask questions, just to arouse the curiosity of the child. And they tell you a great story of a Nobel Prize winning physicist. His name was Isidor Rabi. He once explained that you know why he became a physicist that was a Nobel Prize winner? And the reason is because when every other child would come home from school, Their mother would ask them, Tatale, what did you learn today? Well, my mother said this physicist would ask me, Izzy, what good question did you ask today? So when we dip the vegetable in the salt water, you can think to yourself that there's no reason why I'm dipping it in the salt water. You know why I'm dipping it in? So I should have questions. And the only way to grow is by always being curious to learn more, by always asking, by always being engaged in learning. So as we're dipping the carpet, even if there's no kids at the table, for ourselves, why am I dipping? In order that I should know that I need to do things to arouse my curiosity, to always want to learn more. Okay, several questions. Why am I using onions? So as I said before, it can be any vegetable you want, as long as it's a vegetable. The Chabad custom is that the don't use onion because it's bitter, just like the salt water that we're putting it into. But you can use a potato, you can use parsley, you can use lettuce, celery. Okay, someone asked about what you can do before the Seder. Everything that I'm telling you now is important to do after. Meaning, from Kiddush, really. I'll tell you what. If you want to do most before the Seder, keep the 4 cups of wine until afterwards. The most important afterwards is the matzah and the maror. That's the most important. And later, I'll come back to this question later. Okay? I'll come back to that question. Okay. Now we come to step 5. Step 5 is to tell the story. Telling the story is another critical part of the Seder night. It's one of 2 commandments that are actually biblical. But before we tell the story, we need to do 3 things. Number 1 is we need to break the middle matzah. So there's some space over here. Remember, we had 3 matzahs. So the middle matzah is right here in the middle. We're going to break it. Whoopsies, we lost it. I fell. We're going to break it. Very broken. We're going to leave the smaller broken pieces inside the Seder plate, in between the whole one on the top and the whole one on the bottom. And the broken half, the bigger broken half, is going to be taken out and put into a bag and kept for another night. The Chabad custom is to break it into 5 pieces, but you don't have to. The main thing is you put it into a bag, take it off the table so no one will eat it when it's not supposed to be eaten. And now when we say the story, we have the poor man's bread. We have besides for the whole matzahs, we also have the broken matzah in between the 2 whole matzahs. There's 2 whole matzahs and 1 broken in the middle. Got it? Okay. The second thing we need to do is to refill our cups of wine. We're not going to drink the wine now. We're going to only pour it. And the entire telling of the story of the Exodus will be said over the full cup of wine, which we will drink at the end of the telling of the story. The third thing we need to do is manashtam. You need to ask the question. And this is very important. The Torah clearly said that when you teach your child, it should be in a way of questions and answers. Frontal teaching, where you just force feed information to a child, much like in schools, where you're just giving information, is not the way to ensure your child remains learning forever. The proper way to teach your child is to arouse their curiosity, to pique their interest. And therefore, the telling of the story begins with questions. Only after there's questions, then are the answers more meaningful and important to us. If there are no kids at the table, then the adult should ask the manashtam. In fact, in Jewish law, it says that if you're sitting by the same table by yourself and there's no other children, then you should be the child and you should ask the manashtana to Avinu Sheba Shemayim, to our Father in heaven, that he should answer our questions. It's a corny joke, but just a quick joke about manashtana. That Haimi was going to be knighted by the queen. He was very, very excited. This opportunity was going to be made into a knight, but he had to memorize some Latin words that will be said at the knighting ceremony. He comes to the ceremony. He comes in front of the queen. He kneels on one knee. All the knights go up. They say all their Latin lines. He comes up. He gets on one knee, and all of a sudden his mind blanks on him. She puts the sword on his shoulder. She's waiting for him to say the Latin words he's supposed to say. His mind goes totally blank. So he says the only other words he can think of that are close to being Latin to him are some Hebrew words he remembers from his childhood at the Seder, and he screams out, and the queen, with a confused look, turns to the king and says, "Tell me, why is this night different than all other nights?" Now, after the Manishtana is where you tell the story. In the Haggadah, there's a lot of stuff to tell, a lot of Haggadah to share. However, you don't have to say all of it. Here's what you must say. For passage 4, as you can see my screen, and this was already emailed out to all of you, you have this yourself, the Manishtana with the 4 questions. Passage, by the way, the order of the 4 questions is different according to Chabad custom. You can do whatever custom you want. This is what you must say. Avadim hayinu lepara b'Mitzrayim. You begin by saying we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and then God redeemed us. And then you say over the story of the Exodus in your own words. You don't have to read anything. It's not a night of praying, it's a night of storytelling. You, in your own words, once you read this one paragraph, go ahead and share with your child, share with your spouse, share with yourself, whatever you know about the pyramids, about slavery, about Moses, with the splitting of the sea. Share whatever you know. You should talk about the 10 plagues, obviously. Definitely include 10 plagues. And then you come to this passage number 6. Passage number 6 are 3 paragraphs towards the end of the Maggid. These 3 paragraphs are very, very important. They must be said. 3 paragraphs are 1 paragraph about the Pesach offering, explaining that in the times of the temple, the reason why we ate the Pesach offering was to remember how we put the blood on the doorpost, and God passed over our houses and saved us from the death of the firstborn. The second paragraph, this paragraph, Matzah Zu, is explaining why we eat the matzah, to remember how the Jews left Egypt before they had a chance to rise. And the third paragraph is Maror Zesh Anu Eichlin, describing the maror that we eat to remember the bitterness and the slavery of the Jewish people. After those 3 paragraphs is another important paragraph, which is B'chol Dar V'Dar. In every generation, we are required to view ourselves as if we ourselves right now are experiencing our own personal exodus from Egypt. When you read all of that, then you pick up your glass of wine, which should still be full. By the way, if you pick up wine during the 10 plagues, you should refill it. You're holding a full glass of wine or kiddush cup of wine in your hand, and you make the blessing that's in front of you on the screen in passage number 7, which is the blessing on making the Haggadah, on reciting the Haggadah. And when you finish this one blessing, this paragraph, which is a blessing, then you pick up the cup in your hand, make the blessing Borei Pri Hagafen a second time, make sure you're reclining, and you drink the second cup. Okay. Go back to my beautiful face. So, is all of that clear? Yes? Any questions? Feel free to make a comment and I will respond. And I'm sorry, we'll be having a virtual spiritual study together, everyone together. Okay. After you do all that, we now come to the most important parts, which are the eating of the matzah and the maror. So even if you started before the holiday got dark, 8:05 is this. Okay? And if you didn't do, let's start, meaning this part absolutely needs to be after 8:05. Even if you didn't do the 4 cups of wine, the 4 cups of the wine are from our midday rabbanon, they're rabbinic in nature. The matzah is biblical, so that's no messing around with that. Get up and you go wash your hands for hamotzi, the way you wash your hands for bread. 3 times on the right, 3 times on the left. After you wash 3 on the right, 3 on the left, you make the blessing. The blessing we make for washing our hands. We sit down and we eat the matzah. We make 2 blessings on the matzah. The first blessing is hamotzi lachem in haaretz. It's on the screen. It's on the that we have as well. The first blessing is hamotzi lechem in haaretz. The second blessing right over here is a specific, unique blessing, thanking God for giving us the mitzvah of eating the matzah. 1 second. Oh, I didn't show that on the screen. Whoops, sorry. Okay. So I didn't share my screen properly. Did I? I don't think so. So the point is you have two. Oh, it's not anymore. 1 second. So we are going to make the matzah. We're going to make those two blessings, which is hamotzi and the mitzvah on eating the matzah. And then after we do that, then we are going. Sorry about that. Once you eat the matzah, there we go. There we go. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Once you eat the matzah, 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 you eat the matzah. You must eat the matzah reclining. So let's take the matzah. The matzah you're going to use for this is the top one, and the middle broken matzah. Leave the whole bottom one for now. You're not going to use it. The top one and the middle one. Okay. So we're going to take this broken one and this. We're going to eat it reclining. Now, this is very important. You must eat, every person must eat a full kizayis matzah, which is basically, if you're getting a gift box of matzah from me, one full matzah. Each one of these matzahs, the full matzah is the requirement for a person to eat. If you're getting a bigger matzah, which if you bought like a pound of matzah, the matzahs are bigger, then a person needs to eat between a third and a half of a whole matzah. That's the minimum matzah you must eat in order to get the full dose of spiritual medicine in the matzah. Okay? Hopefully that's very clear, very, very important. Okay? Two questions. Can you use the printout in lieu of a regular Haggadah? Yes, you could. These are the most important paragraphs. You can use your Haggadah to do more if you want, or to pick out a few other ones that catch your attention. But the printout that I've given you has everything that you need to fulfill the mitzvah. Meaning, if you use the printout that I've provided, you will have said everything that needs to be said at your Seder. Yes. And will God forgive you? Don't do the Seder perfectly. As long as you're trying your best, God will forgive you. If you're not trying your best, and then not. But if you're trying your best, then God will absolutely forgive you. So eating the maror, eating the matzah, sorry, everyone must eat a full kazais matzah. We eat it reclining. After that comes, as I said before, that if you eat the matzah and have no idea what you're doing, it's like eating medicine. There's a spiritual holiness in this handmade, guarded matzah that specifically provides us with food of faith, with food of healing. The next step after this is the eating of the maror. So if you go to your Seder plate, here's our Seder plate. We're going to take the maror in the very middle of the Seder plate. Okay, middle of the Seder plate. We're going to dip it into the charoses. We don't put more charoses than maror. Misconception. I've seen people, they like dip in a little bit of maror and they're eating charoses and lettuce. You're eating maror. The maror is sweetened by dipping it into the charoses, but that's all. We take the maror with the charoses and we make a blessing. Not on the vegetable, we're going to make that blessing. Asher kedichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu alach klasmo. We make a blessing, thanking God for giving us the mitzvah of eating maror, and we eat it. Do we eat it reclining? What do you say? Feel free to comment. Do you think we eat the maror reclining? The answer is no. We don't eat the matzah reclining. Thank you, Yoni. We don't eat it reclining because we're not in freedom right now. Now we're remembering the suffering and the slavery and the bitterness of our forefathers in Egypt 3,332 years ago from right? And therefore, when we eat this, we eat it sitting up straight without reclining. After that, if you have time, if you're in the mood, you should do korech. Korech is where you take the bottom maror and the bottom matzah and you make a sandwich. This is a custom. If it's too much for you and you can't handle it, as long as you ate a full matzah, as long as you ate maror, you're good. Okay? After that, we have a custom. custom to eat the egg dipped into salt water to remember the Passover offerings in the temple. There's no blessing or prayer that is said with that. It is a custom that we do to finish off this part of the Seder before the meal begins. The next part of the Seder is the easiest part. Eat. Jews don't need any explanation how to do that. We are experts at eating, and we do that. By the way, at this point, you should have eaten everything on your Seder plate, besides for a little bit of charoses and the shank bone. You've eaten the maror, you've eaten the vegetable, and you've eaten the egg. Okay? You don't need that anymore. You can put your Seder plate away. You can take out your other food, take out the food, whatever you didn't eat, go ahead and eat it. End of the meal, dessert is afikomen. Ideally, everyone should eat another full kizayis, meaning another full matzah or a full third, half of the full size pound matzah. If you're full and you can't handle it anymore, you're going to eat too much matzah, that's okay. You should still eat at least a little bit of matzah so you have the taste of matzah in your mouth, because we want the taste of the matzah to be our dessert with which we're tasting for the rest of the night. After we do the afikomen, we don't eat anymore. Again, it's not critical if you don't. At least try and have a little bit of afikomen, even if it's just one bite, so that you can have it. There was a question, what happened to the four sons? The four sons are in the Haggadah, but it's not critical to say them. Absolutely, you can say them, and you can say about the stories of the rabbis of Bnei Brak, and you can talk about Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. It's all in the Haggadah, but it's not critical to the story. After the afikomen, to answer the question before, if you started your Seder before dark, and I really hope that you don't, but if you did, at least save the shmura matzah for the afikomen. This is like a sneak. This is not what I'm telling you. Is not the proper way to do it. But if you did it not properly, this is your makeup. This is your get out of jail free card. Save the shmura matzah for the afikomen and eat this as your afikomen, and you will fulfill the mitzvah of eating a full matzah after 8:05, after it gets dark. After you do that, take your bottle of wine, fill up the third cup of wine. Take a cup of third time. And now we are going to do the benching. We are going to thank God for the meal. I have to say that every other blessing that we said tonight is only rabbinic. A blessing on the vegetable, a blessing on doing a mitzvah. All of these blessings we said tonight, they're from the rabbis. They are not critical things that we had to do from the Torah. The only blessing we're going to make tonight, which is a mitzvah from the Torah, is the blessing after the meal. So even though many, many, many homes, by the time the meal is over, they're done, and they already did their Seder, actually some of the most important parts of the Seder are still to come. The most important is the matzah and telling the story. But this is very important. To bless God and to thank God for a meal is a biblical obligation. Fill up your cup of wine, and you make the benching over here. The whole benching, the whole blessing after the meal is much longer, obviously. If it's too much, the most important thing is to say the first paragraph. Right here is the first paragraph. If you say the first paragraph, you're good. After you finish the benching, or the paragraph of benching, you pick up your third cup of wine. You're leaning to your left side. You make the blessing, Borei Pri Hagafen, and you drink the wine. You should drink the entire cup. Better to have a smaller cup. If you can't drink a lot of wine, then drink a whole cup of grape juice. Then comes the fourth and final cup. Immediately after you finish drinking the wine, right away you fill up your cup again. Fill up your cup again for the fourth time. And now we're going to do the Hallel, the praising of God. But before we do that, we are going to pour a fifth cup of wine. There's a little mistake here in the print that I noticed. They have the cup of Elijah in the wrong place. A little bit of a mistake. We are going to pour a fifth cup of wine. This fifth cup of wine is not going to be drunken by anyone by the table. It is the cup, the kos to Eliyahu Hanavi. It is the cup of Elijah, the prophet, and Eliyahu Hanavi, or Eliyahu Tishbi as he's known, is the one who will come and announce the coming of Mashiach. He is his job is to be the one who will blow the shofar, telling us that the time of our redemption has finally arrived. And so, even though we believe with complete faith that Mashiach can come any day of the year, Obviously, obviously, there is on the night of Pesach, which is the night where we were redeemed from Egypt 3,332 years ago. There's a special energy of redemption in the air. It's a very special time for redemption, a much more opportune time for Mashiach to come, and therefore to show our confidence in the coming of Mashiach. We open the door for Elijah. We open the door, waiting to hear the shofar being blown for us to go out to the redemption of Mashiach. So we've poured the fourth cup of wine for ourselves. We've poured a fifth cup of wine for Elijah the prophet. And then we say Hallel. Hallel is right over here, several pages in the Haggadah. If you cannot do the whole Hallel, it's late and you're tired, 2 paragraphs that you must say. Keliata. And then the concluding paragraph of the Hallel right here. This is the conclusion of the Hallel. Yehallelujah Hashem. For God I praise you. Very important. What you should be doing at this time is thinking of how you in your own life need to praise God. How you in your own life need to praise God. The whole point of this last step of the Haggadah is to praise God for the miracles that He did for us. So to the Hallel consists of our singing God's praises and how God is. God doesn't need to hear our praises. I think God has low self-esteem. He needs us to come validate Him. The reason why we say Hallel, the reason why we praise God, is to remind ourselves of all the good that God has done for us. Very often we get lost in society, we get so distracted, so busy, we forget to appreciate all the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, has done for His people. Pesach night, especially the end of the Seder. You're sitting after a few cups of wine, and you're saying the Hallel. Stop. Don't be in a rush and think, what do I personally need to praise God for? What miracles has He done for me? What blessings has He done for me? That I need to say thank you and praise you. Hallelujah. Once we finish praising God, we take the fourth and final cup of wine, we make a final Borei Pri Hagafen. The fourth cup, each cup has its own blessing. Once again, we lean back and drink it in a reclining position, and we drink it, etc. And then comes the very last step of the Haggadah. 3 words that we need to say. 3 words are Lashana, Haba, Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem, and we are sure, we are confident that all of our divine service will bring the coming of Mashiach. Speedily, the next year we will not be sitting alone in quarantine, in isolation, far away from our family and our friends and those that we love and care so much about. But the next year we'll be sitting, all of Am Yisrael, all of the Jewish people, will be sitting together as one nation, one now, one heart, sitting together in Jerusalem, enjoying the Seder Pesach all together as one. Many customs have the custom to say, Seder Pesach, that we have now concluded the Seder of Pesach. In Chabad, we do not say that because we never finished the Pesach Seder, the Pesach experience. It's only meant to be something that we continue to go grow and grow and grow. And the second night we do this again, and obviously the challenge on the second night is to be able to experience something new that we didn't experience the night before. Anyway, that concludes the entire Seder. Hour and 50 minutes. I'm pretty good. I'm open to any questions. Please feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself now if you would like, or you can post on the chat. I believe that we've covered everything, the 4 cups of wine, the matzah, the mar, everything you need to do. I will make a recording of this available, whoever would like. Feel free to share with your friends or anyone that needs. Let's see what questions. I see a whole bunch of questions over here. Okay, let's go up over here a second. Let's see what questions we have. Before, as I said, it's all many more parts of Haggadah that you should say. I'm just giving you the basics of what's critical. Would it be appropriate to create some symbolism for today for the coronavirus? I think not, because the Seder is about the liberation from the suffering. So we don't find anyone, the Jews, even in the concentration camps, needed reminders of the suffering, the reminders of the liberation. Meaning maybe next year we can make a remembrance how last year we were alone. But now we don't need to make a symbolism. You don't need a reminder of something that you're experiencing in your own life. It's only you need a reminder of something that you're not experiencing. There's many beautiful Pesach songs, many classics like Chad Gadya, etc. Who knows one? Who knows two? Who knows three? They're on the Chabad.org's website. I can show you some of those songs. Many Haggadahs have the songs. Absolutely. Feel free to sing the whole night. In no way am I limiting the songs. I'm just telling you what the basics are. When you have the basics, then you can build off of that, whatever works for your family. I will just tell you a personal thing. Last Shabbat, actually before Shabbat, I printed out a whole bunch of songs. I know, my wife knows, that our kids don't know. We spent like an hour singing camp songs together. It was beautiful. Okay, the Seder is the same on the first night as it is on the second night. As I said, the challenge is to find a way of making it more spiritually uplifting and meaningful and connecting to a message or a thought that you didn't do on the first night that you find in the second night. The question is, why do we do it 2 nights instead of 1? In Israel, they only do 1 night. Why do we do 2 nights? And the answer, very briefly, is because in the times of the temple, there was no set structured calendar. The Jews didn't have a calendar where they would know in advance what the day of Pesach would be. And the months were established on the first day of the month, where witnesses would come to the temple and say, we saw the new moon. And so therefore, Jews living in Israel were able to see when Pesach was. They knew what, if Pesach is on the 15th day of the month. So if you know what day the first day of the month is, then you know what day the 15th of the month. So you know what day is Pesach. But the Jews that were living outside of Israel, living in the diaspora, in Egypt, etc., they were not able to know what day was Rosh Chodesh. And so because they were not able to be sure which day would be the first day of the month, I mean, they didn't know if the month before would be 29 days or 30 days. They didn't know this year would the 15th day of the month be on Wednesday, or would it be on Thursday? Or in this case, Thursday and Friday. Therefore, they celebrated 2 days, the night of Wednesday night going to Thursday, the night of Thursday night going to Friday, in order to be sure that no matter which night is Pesach, they keep. Obviously, once we start something beautiful and holy, we don't take it away. We only add in holiness. We don't decrease in holiness. Even though we now know with certainty what night is Pesach, we know clearly what night it will be. Nevertheless, we don't decrease in holiness. Once Jewish people have been accustomed for hundreds of years to celebrate 2 nights at Pesach, we don't stop, and we continue to celebrate 2 nights of Pesach. It's a beautiful explanation of Chassidus, that specifically because we're living in a time of darkness, living in diaspora, we're living outside of Israel, because we're far from holiness. That's why we need more holiness in order to give us the ability to spiritually connect. And if you're living in Israel, 1 day suffices to spiritually ingest you with the liberation and freedom that you need to survive. But if you're living in Florida, living in the land of Galus, of exile, 1 day is not enough. You need 2 days. The question is, do you hide the Afikomen for your children to find? And the answer is, I absolutely do. In our home, the custom is that everyone that makes their own Seder plate hides the Afikomen, and the children do not steal it. That is not the custom, although it is in other homes. Our custom is that the father or the mother, in my parents' home actually, my father never hid it, my mother hid it. Some point during the meal, he would secretly slide it off to my mother, because my mother would be getting up and now, my father was at the table, my mother would, and she actually was the one that would hide it, not my father. But whoever it is, yes, you should hide the Afikomen. And then when it comes to the meal, by the meat course already, and it's very, very late at night, and the kids are getting tired, this gives a whole new boost of energy, and especially if you hit it well and they can't find it, they have to start searching for it, and you give them clues, and etc. It gives a lot of energy in the home. By the way, on Chabad.org is a full Haggadah if you need. I also want to say, thank you, Marsha, I have in shul Haggadahs. If anyone wants a full printed color Haggadah, Hebrew and English, I actually got a whole box of them for free. Come to the Chabad house, and I'd be glad to give you. I didn't announce earlier. I didn't only get them until yesterday, till today actually. I got them. I didn't get them until today actually. Yes. I'll be glad to give you as many Haggadahs as you need for your family. The printout is only the basics to give you an idea of what's critical. But ideally, you should do more than that. There's only two people having the Seder. Should you hide the Afikomen? So there's no halacha requirement to hide the Afikomen. It's just okay. Two things. The Afikomen is called Safum. Safum means dessert. It also means that which is hidden, that which is concealed. So this idea of concealing the Afikomen, that it shouldn't be revealed on the table during the whole Seder process. In the whole telling of the story, the Afikomen should be hidden. That's for sure. Whether or not your spouse knows where you hid it is another discussion. In Kabbalah, it says that you should hide it in the pillows. When you say the Seder, you're saying very often you see it with pillows to help when we're reclining, when we eat the matzah and drink the wine, just to put it in between the pillows. But and it's easy to put it. You want to be fun, and you want one spouse to hide it from the other spouse, and maybe if you have 2 nights of 2 seders, so on one night you hide it from your husband, and another night your husband hides it from you. Sounds like a plan. No reason why not to do that and make things more exciting and more lively. But you don't have to hide it. But it's definitely more fun. Thank you, Cheryl, for the comment. I'm glad that you did this. God willing, tomorrow we will send out an email to all of you with the recording of tonight's class. I'm going to put up on Facebook as well. I couldn't live stream it to Facebook at all. Tomorrow I'll put it out if anyone can have it. Any other questions? Yeah, I agree. If I was alone with just my spouse and no kids in my home, Baruch Hashem, I'm blessed to have 7 kids. But if I had no kids, then probably I would. What I would probably do is I would hide it from Chana on one night, and I would let her hide it from me the other night. To keep it up. Thank you, Howard. Have a wonderful Seder. I'm glad that we all learned something. Again, if you have any questions, if you have anything, don't forget to sell your chametz. So go online and sell your chametz. And the last time to eat chametz on Wednesday is, I'll tell you in a second. The last time to eat your chametz is at 11:15, I think. Yes, the last time to eat your chametz at 11:15, and to be burnt by 12:19. If you search for the chametz and you have eaten pieces or any chametz, you can bring it to Chabad before noon on Wednesday. Or bring it on tomorrow. I will burn it for you on Wednesday morning. Okay? Wish you all the happiest, healthiest, most beautiful, meaningful, uplifting Pesach Seder. Really, the challenges, as I wrote my short email, we have much less distraction this year at our Seder. I for sure will have much less distraction. So if you have less distraction, use the opportunity to really find inspiration and meaning from the Seder that you've never found before. Be young, be a child, be young at heart, and connect to it and experience it in a beautiful way. Okay. Thank you very, very much, my friends. May God bless you all with a happy, healthy, beautiful, amazing Pesach. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Gary and Yoni and Steve and everyone else. God bless you all.